Welcome to Art That Plays and Praise. I'm Ginger. In this unboxing video, I'll talk about brush markers, and while I'm giving a thorough product review, I'll test the markers by creating this fancy handwritten typography. There are tons of marker brands out there, from Crayola and Tombow to Ohuhu, Prismacolor, Faber-Castell, Pitt Pens, and many other generic Copic knockoffs in Amazon. But the focus of my review is the Shinhan brand from Korea, which can be an alternative to the more popular but expensive Copic markers from Japan. Copics are premium grade and perform really well without streaking. The brush nibs have a nice spring to it and can tolerate abuse from an artist's heavy hand, but I must admit it requires a huge investment. So today we'll explore a different marker set. Though I want to make it clear, I'm not instigating brand loyalty of any kind. As a mixed media artist, I have an arsenal of tools at my disposal which come from so many different manufacturers. But I was curious about Shinhan, and mainly because of its packaging, which you'll see during this unboxing. Shinhan's generous packaging speaks volumes about the quality it upholds, from this corrugated outer box to the carry-on case, and even down to the individually wrapped markers. You can already tell this company knows its business. So my first impression, well, this white bag is hefty. It's very well constructed. It's not flimsy plastic, not at all. Compare that with Copic Ciao's packaging. The Copics come with these transparent hard-shell plastic cases with individual compartments that allow the markers to stand upright. It's an okay setup, if you ask me. If you plan to work permanently on a desk, this is okay. But for me, portability is key, so a container with a handle is a notch better in my assessment. Portability matters for many of us urban sketchers and designers who occasionally work on location. So you can never underestimate the usefulness of a handle and a storage case. Plastic or acrylic organizers are great, but to me, cases with handles as an added feature, well, that's really smart. Copics do have other storage solutions like wallet cases and zipper pouches for the times you need to travel with your pens. But those are sold separately, not like Shinhan Touch, where you get the complete package with a set of 60 markers. As you can see, the pens are arranged by color codes in ascending order, and they are grouped according to color families, like cool grays are together, the browns are batched together, so are the blues and the greens, which is great because then you can easily eyeball which dark and light shades you can blend when you're coloring. Aside from the numbers, the names are also printed on the caps, as you see here, which is great, right? Very convenient. Although markers can be stored vertically, it's recommended that we keep them lying down to allow sufficient amount of inks to flow on both ends of the pen. Of course, this wouldn't be an issue with new markers because the barrels are still full of ink. But if you've used your pens for a longer period and kept them upright, you run the risk of losing color saturation on the upper nib of the pen. Now, one thing I love about Touch that I haven't seen in many other markers is this individual shrink wrapping. Others might find it a hassle to remove the added packaging, but to me, this plastic film is a guarantee that no one else sampled this pen before I bought it. That what I'm getting is really fresh and new and not used, returned, or resold. If you take a closer look, the pen has perforations on the side and a tiny tab on the end, which I showed you a while ago. You can pull it, but I must admit it's tough. It was tough to slide the wrapping off. I wasn't careful, so I snapped the tab even before I could fully open this. And in so doing, I ended up coloring my finger right here, and it's really permanent. It doesn't wipe off because this is an alcohol marker and they dry quickly and they're more permanent. So check out my finger here, a quick smudge of pink, and voila, I couldn't get it off with a paper towel. People who prefer permanent markers are usually those who don't want to deal with unwanted smudges in their art, because alcohol-based inks, you don't have to worry about accidental water spills, not like water-based markers which bleed. going to try this a second time. See this tab right here on the very end, and on the side of the markers are perforations. Now you'll have the shrink wrap on all the pens in all the sets, whether you're buying the 60 marker set or the 12s, 24s, or 36s. Shinhan Touch comes in a variety of sizes, and you can even buy them as individual markers. I mean in singles, just like we do with Copics. As you can see, the Touch has a brush nib on one end and a broad chisel nib on the opposite end. Off camera, I unwrapped every single marker, and boy, my fingers are really sore. I failed to mention this 60 marker set I've unboxed is a Touch set B. There's another set of brush tip markers, set A, packed in the same white case with 60 pieces inside, but of different color codes. In this set B, I have 5 different shades of cool grays, 5 green grays, and another 5 warm grays. In the second row, I have here brown gray, raw amber, walnut, bronze, chestnut brown, mahogany, burnt sienna, burnt orange, purple gray, which looks like a pink, vivid reddish purple. This looks more like fuchsia, pastel violet, light violet, royal blue, dark blue light, and Napoleon blue. On the third row, there's bronze green, deep olive green, fresh green, which is really yellow. Okay, it's not green at all. Canary yellow, forest green, deep green. There's a turquoise green, an emerald green, an Indian blue. There's this mint green light, a marine blue, baby blue, pastel blue, and turquoise blue right here. Last is the pastel yellow, melon yellow, deep yellow. Now salmon pink, this doesn't look like pink, it's more like a skin tone. Then I have marigold, pastel pink, French vermilion, coral pink, geranium, scarlet, rose pink, vivid red, rose red, and last but not least, wine red. All in all, that's 60 of the 204 colors available in Shinhan Touch. Shinhan is another product line, which is a chisel nib on one end and a fine tip on the other instead of a brush nib. If you prefer a more controlled line width for drawing, that set is for you. Those Touch markers come in a black case and black ergonomic barrels instead of white. Those double-ended markers also come in a wide spectrum of 204 different colors. That's it for the info side of things. Now let's get this thing to work. I'll test the pens using this 70-pound Copic paper, which is specifically designed for marker and pen illustrations. I also use Pigma Micron pens to draw. If you want to follow along and copy my handmade fonts, feel free to pause the video. Occasionally, I'll give you close-up shots so you can copy the finer details. I love making up fancy fonts, so what you see me doodling here are just stuff that flows out of the top of my head as I go. I'm not copying from anyone. These are all my original designs. But the quote is from Corrie ten Boom, a Holocaust survivor and author of the best-selling book, The Hiding Place. You have to forgive me. I made a mistake in copying down the quote. What you'll see me doodle here is when the train goes through a dark tunnel and it gets dark. But the real line should be when the train goes through a tunnel and it gets dark. My bad. I echo the word dark, but that's okay. I'll be cutting these words later anyway, so I can fix the mistake and get rid of the extra dark. For now, bear with me, please. Now, what are my first impressions now that I'm coloring with the touch markers? First off the bat, the smell, or the lack of it. Alcohol markers are normally pungent. They leave off a strong odor, but this Shinhan doesn't smell anything. Well, at least from where I'm sitting with the pen about a foot away from my face, I don't smell anything. But if you put the nib right under your nose, it does have a faint smell, but it's not oppressive. Next is the smoothness. I love how I can glide the brush and the pointy tip doesn't fray. There are some Amazon brands, those knockoffs, where the brush nib is already frayed even before you start painting. Now here it's more intact. Shinhan Touch is really good quality. The brush holds its shape very well, pretty much like the Copics. At this point, I don't even see any difference with the Copic markers. The colors are well saturated also. The color indicator on the marker cap is very accurate. It's a very accurate representation of the actual ink color, so there's no confusion there. If you're like me and you're also lazy to make a color chart on paper, then you'll be fine with this product because the color tag you see on the cap, it's exactly what the ink displays on paper. Okay, it's very precise. It's true to its color. If there's anything I can say that's a disadvantage with Shinhan Touch compared to Copics, maybe it's the number of colors available, because Copic Sketch has a total of 358 colors you can choose from. Copic Ciao has way less than that. They only have 180 colors. Shinhan is somewhere in between. They have 204 colors available. Of course, none of that matters if you can't afford to buy all the 358 sketch markers anyway, but it's just nice to know you have that many choices out there. You can easily get around that problem though if this is something you consider a limiting factor for your purchasing decision. The fact that touch markers blend so well, you can actually layer your coloring to produce variations in shades and hues. You can mix colors, like what I'm doing here in this demo, or whatever color you lack in your Shinhan set. You can also supplement with your Copics because both the Touch and the Copic markers, they work well together. They're both alcohol-based markers and they do blend well together. Now the last thing I like to mention, just like Copics, Touch markers have a flat, squarish barrel, but with a slight tapering on both ends. I like that it lays flat on the table because when I'm working, I tend to throw my pens around, and when I do toss them carelessly without thought, I don't have to worry about them rolling off the table, which happens often with me when I'm using my Copic Ciao, Tombow, or any of those pens which have a standard cylindrical body. This touch barrel, it's fat and it sits well in my hand. Also worth mentioning is that these pens are refillable. You can buy refill inks and replace the nibs if you ever decide to do so. The inks also adhere on plastic surfaces. Surprise! It's not just on paper. It can write on glass, on plastic. I tried writing on a transparency sheet and on a plastic grocery bag, and I was surprised that the marker lines stayed there, although it wasn't permanent though. I scrubbed them vigorously and the inks, eventually got erased. Oh well, who would use expensive markers on grocery bags anyway, right? Well, like I briefly mentioned a moment ago, although what I've unboxed here is an assorted set of 60 markers, Shinhan Touch also comes in sets of 6s, 12s, 24, 36, or 48 pens. Just like the Copics, you can buy the Touch markers in singles. So if you're on a tight budget, you can build your collection slowly. The smaller sets, the 6s and the 12s, they're grouped into different categories. Like there's a set for skin tones, or all pastels, or only cool grays, or only primary colors, or fluorescents. There's a whole lot of flexibility in the assortments to help you organize and build your personal collection. that's it for today's episode. Friends, thank you for joining me. I hope you like the topography and this quote from Corrie ten Boom. When the train goes through a tunnel and it gets dark, you don't throw away the ticket and jump off. You sit still and trust the engineer. This line is a perfect metaphor for life and all its moments of suffering. When life gets dark for you, don't give up, my friend. Sit still and wait, and trust the God who engineered your life. He will bring you out of the tunnel in due time. Again, this is Ginger from Art That Plays and Prays. God bless you and see you again next time.